Welcome to another video, guys. Today we will have another top 5 to see what are the best decks in December after the nerfs. The meta has shifted quite a lot, so today we will find out what are the top dogs and what are the other great decks that didn't get featured in this video as well. I will give you an overview of each deck, its win rates, a mulligan guide, and if it's worth crafting, so stay tuned. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for the low price of your firstborn child and your left kidney.
What are you talking about? It's free.
It's free, so why aren't they subscribing?
Maybe it's because you suck.
Bastard bitch! Bloody fuck you, bloody!
Now, let's get into the video. The first deck on the list has to be Whirlkick Rogue. It feels like the nerfs were kinda lagging because Rogue was already taking up the top spot in the new meta, but after the nerfs, its position just got reinforced. It has a lot of tempo in it, and the combo potential it has with the huge eddies and the huge questing adventurers is not something you should underestimate. A lot of the times you can finish the game as soon as 3 or turn 4 with a huge eddy, but if that plan doesn't pan out, you definitely have a lot of potential in the mid game as well. There are only 3 new cards in this deck, but it is enough to create somewhat of a new archetype, even though it feels a lot like Miracle Rogue from back in the days. We have Foxy Fraud, Swindle, and Whirlkick Master, from where it takes its name. It's a huge value generator deck as well. You have your cats for excellent reborns, you have your Miscreant for excellent lackeys with even more value generation from those, you have your Jandis, you have your Wand Thief, and let's not forget Whirlkick Master, which is the huge value generator. The draw engines of this deck are huge as well. Swindle helps you draw your spells and minions, and you also have your Secret Passage, which is just a busted card, even after the nerfs. For the matchups, honestly, you do not have bad matchups. Every game will be either 50-50 or very heavily in your favor, as long as you know what you're doing with the deck. The only deck that might be a problem for you would be Secret Rogue, and also ETC Control Warrior could be somewhat problematic, but all in all, it's anyone's game. For the mulligan, when you're going first, you would want your Edwin, Miscreant, Pharaoh's Cat, Foxy Fraud, Swindle, and maybe Prize Plunderer. If the game presents you with some kind of crazy interaction early on, definitely take it. Cause if you get Foxy Fraud, Shadow Step, Backstab, and Edwin, you all know what that means. Don't get baited into keeping Whirlkick, because he is not an early game minion, but a mid game huge value generator for you, so do not keep it. Same goes for Questing Adventure, but for prep, you could actually keep it in a scenario where you already have your Edwin, so pay attention to what the game can offer you. When you're going second, Edwin becomes even stronger, and again you would like to keep your Pharaoh Cat, Foxy Fraud, but this time Prep, Jandis, and Questing Adventurer are a lot more appealing, and same goes for Backstab because it's gonna be a nice answer for your opponent's questions. Is the deck worth the craft? It's not too expensive and it's pretty strong, so I guess yes. But I do believe we might see a nerf on it in the next several weeks too. So be careful if you have to be crafting too many cards for it. Other than that, Weapon Rogue, Secret Rogue, and even Highlander Rogue are doing quite fine. And there's even a Questing Rogue list that is also doing somewhat good, so you have plenty to choose from. Next up, let's talk about Evolve Shaman. With Shaman, there's nothing in between. It's either God tier or trash, and right now, it's the time for it to be God tier. There are so many Evolve Shaman lists out there, and you've probably already seen all of them, but right now, the Pirate Shaman list seems to be the strongest. I've already talked about the regular Shaman list, so let's talk about the main differences here. We were already running the Horde Pillagers and the Dread Corsairs, so it had plenty of pirates to begin with. But now, people started adding the Brigands and also Captain Greenskin for some extra swings. We also have the Sea Giants because we do have plenty of tokens with this deck, including the Derailed Coaster. And we also have Animated Broom so we can utilize the newly evolved minions. The deck also finds place for 2 revolves, which is also pretty nice if you get something pretty bad, so you have that 1 mana safety net. Other than that, it's pretty standard. It got even stronger after the nerfs because the only bad matchup was Aggro Demon Hunter, and nowadays that is definitely not as dominant. As you can see from the matchups, anything else from the popular ones is pretty good for you, so you should have no problem climbing with it. For the mulligan, it's quite tricky because you will need to be thinking about synergies. But as you can see, if you're going first, Dread Corsair and the weapon would be your most important keeps. Also Sludge Slurper, Custodian, Lightning Bloom, and the Desert Hare would be your next best bets. When you're on the coin, it's pretty much the same, but the Animated Broomstick and the Parachute Brigand become a lot more important, because you will need to be answering your opponent's board. And since the deck doesn't have any removal in it, the Broomstick serves as an excellent one. Don't get baited into keeping Revolve and Instructor Fireheart. And also Captain Greenskin is not an amazing keep. Same goes for Mogu Flesh Shaper and the Giant. Is Evolve Shaman worth the craft? Again, not that expensive, but again, a little bit in the danger zone for getting nerfed. You all know how Blizzard likes nerfing Shaman to the ground once it becomes God tier, but sometimes it takes them longer than they would like to admit. So it's up to you to decide if you want to be crafting the extra legendaries you will be needing for this one. If you're short on dust and you're missing Captain Greenskin, you can definitely try the version without the pirates and you're still gonna have plenty of success. And also, Instructor Fireheart is not that important too, so you might want to try a more budgety version. Other than that, the other two good Shaman decks right now would be Enhancement Shaman and Totem Shaman, even though I'm yet to see any of those in High Legend. On the number 3, let's talk about Pure Paladin again. The deck still remains strong ever since day 1 of Scholomance, so if you decided to craft that deck back in the day, you definitely made a very good choice for your collection, because the new version has only one new legendary in it and the deck works as great as ever. In my version, I do include Barov as well as both consecrations, because now the meta is very heavy on evolved shamans, so being able to reset the board 3 whole times is very important. The meta is not as fast anymore, so we had to cut the shotbots because they weren't pulling their weight as much anymore. Other than that, everything is the same, and you can check out my detailed guide about Libram Paladin, as well as my 2 coaching session videos with it too. For the matchups, the only problem right now is the spike with Whirlkick Rogue, because it's not such a great matchup for it, but other than that, it's pretty good. For the mulligan, when going first, you definitely want to have your Eldor Attendant and first day of school, basically always. Goody 2 Shield is probably always a keep as well, and depending if you already have a good early game minion, you can also keep 1 or 2 buffs too. If you're already curving out well, you can even afford to keep Zealot or Allura, but I wouldn't keep anything above 4 mana with this deck when going first. When going second, it's basically the same, but depending on the matchup, you might consider even keeping a Consecration or Lord Barov, just so you're able to take control of the board early on. Zealot also becomes a lot more keepable, but never get baited into keeping cards like Libram of Justice, Lightforce Crusader, Lady Liadrin, Devout Pupil, and Libram of Hope. Blessing of Authority could be a good keep in some matchups like Druid, where if you coin that out on turn 4, they probably will lose on turn 6. But you have to really plan out the game carefully if you're thinking about keeping Blessing of Authority. Is Libram Paladin worth the craft? It is definitely the most expensive list from today's top 5, so it totally relies on how many cards you're missing from it. Be careful crafting this deck because it's not cheap, but do keep in mind that even after the Hearthstone year rotation happens in April, a lot of its cards are gonna remain here, so it will probably be strong even after April. I also believe that something might get nerfed from it, so there's that too, but the choice is yours. Other than that, we have Pentlinger Paladin, and Dual Paladin is also doing quite alright. Now let's talk about a deck that we haven't talked about in quite a while, Zoo Warlock. This deck archetype always seems to be finding place in the meta, but it's been a while since we've seen a top Zoolock. Usually Zoolock is supposed to be simple, but in this case it's not as simple. You have your discount mechanics for your Flesh Giants, you have your Dark Glares for your Pain Lock synergies, and you have your Hand of a Doll and discard mechanics too. So there's plenty of things to mess up with it if you're not paying attention. It's a very fast deck and you can be dropping Flesh Giants as soon as turn 4 or 5. You have to be careful not to kill yourself with all those damaging spells, and you don't have much healing either, aside from the Spirit Jailers, which are not too reliable at healing you, but it's always nice when they discount your giants even further. For the matchups, Rogue would be the most important bad one, because it's the most popular, but also Aggro Demon Hunter and Highlander Hunter would be pretty scary too, again because you're damaging yourself and you don't have much healing. Other than that, it's doing quite alright, and it's even being used in top 1000 Legend too, so it can definitely do wonders in skilled hands. For the mulligan, when you're going first, you will want your good 1-drops with Tour Guide and Flame Imp, and Hand of Gul'dan would also be pretty decent keep. Dark Glare can be nice, Revenant Rascal can also help in controlling your opponent's mana, but if you're not having any specific synergies, you shouldn't be keeping anything under. When you're going second, your only legendary becomes a lot more important. Again, you want your good 1-drops, Hand of a Doll, Dark Glare, and maybe even Wriggling Horror. This is another very cheap deck, which goes just under 5000 dust, so it's definitely not a bad decision to craft it. It has only one legendary, and it's not rotating in April, so it should be fine for you. Other than that, Control Warlock and also Galakron Warlock could be pretty good for you as well. So you have decisions for Warlock right now, which is pretty cool since it was basically not a class a few weeks ago. And the last deck on today's list is gonna be Enrage Warrior. Enrage Warrior hasn't been as great as the Control and ETC Warrior lately, but now it's back at the top, and it's doing quite well in top 1000 Legend as well as for your Legend climb too. This version is using the chargers, but there's also a version with ETC and also Rattlegore. Here we have only 2 weapons included, so we have only 1 copy of Corsair Cash. We have the 2 new Sword Eaters, which are basically a part of any warrior deck because it's basically at least 5 mana value from them. And we also have Reaper's Sigh for that good spell burst effect and cleave. With this deck, you will have the benefit of the opponent not knowing if you're a fast warrior or a control warrior, and most of the time people will play as if you're control. You can try to increase the time your opponent thinks you're control by not playing your risky skipper too early, but it's up to you. For the matchups, you will be great against the new Whirlkick Rogue, and it's gonna be a 50-50 against Evolve Shaman too. Demon Hunters will be good for you, but Paladins not so much. Not too many other matchups here, but all in all, you should be fine with it. For the mulligan, when you're going first, you will want your Sky Raider, Corsair Cash, Ankar, Wormhole Challenger, and maybe Barov, depending on the matchup. When on the coin, it's pretty much the same, but you can even keep your risky skipper. But really be careful about how you use it, because it's a very important combo for you. Be careful about overkeeping Corsair Cash, because like I said, you only run 2 weapons, so you don't want to be keeping it too much if you already keep an Ankar in hand. Is it worth the craft? It's not too cheap, sitting at about 8,000 dust, but it's pretty strong. It's definitely not a simple deck to pilot, and you will have to make a lot of weird decisions, but if you're up for the challenge, definitely go for it. The only nerf I'm expecting for this deck would be the Sword Eater, and it's not gonna be that huge of a nerf anyway. Other than that, there are plenty of other warriors out there right now as well, with ETC, Just Control, Silas OTK, Bomb Warrior, and even Taunt Menagerie Warrior, so the choice is yours. For the classes I didn't mention today, Aggro Demon Hunter, Soul Demon Hunter, and Lifesteal Demon Hunter are still pretty much very strong. I did peak at top 88 legend last night with Soul Demon Hunter, so yeah, definitely don't underestimate it. With Druid, you can go either with Guardian Druid or Clown Druid, but in top 1000 legends, they're not that amazing. With Hunter, surprisingly Highlander Hunter is still pretty much at the top, and I even considered including it in this top 5 again, but that would have been 3 top 5s in a row, so yeah, no. Face Hunter is also doing quite alright. For Mage, Highlander Mage and Secret Mage would be your best bets. For Priest, Highlander Priest was doing okay, but I'm not too sure anymore. Also, Big Priest might be worth the try. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, a like and a subscribe always helps. Let me know in the comments what are the best decks for you after the nerfs. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.